Police sergeant vanished in 1984, 15 years later. What they found was too horrific to explain. When Sergeant Ethan Raines vanished one October night in 1986, nothing made sense. No farewell, no fight, no sign. Just a patrol car, a silent radio, and an empty desert road. Sergeant Ethan Raines was a well-known figure in Santa Clara, a small desert town near the U.S.-Mexico border. He had 12 years on the force, calm, disciplined fare. He knew the terrain, the people, no history of violence, no scandals. And then one night, he simply disappeared. It was October 14, 1986. Ethan logged in at 6:00 p.m. as usual. The station was quiet. He made his rounds. Stopped for coffee at a 24-hour diner off Highway 80. Waved to the gas station clerk. Everything was normal. At 9:45 p.m., he radioed in. "I'm checking on a suspicious vehicle near the old mine road off my usual route." The dispatcher recorded it. After that, nothing. No call, no distress, no response. By midnight, Ethan had not returned. His radio was silent. The dispatcher filed a log but took no immediate action. At 12:27 a.m., another officer drove along his last known route. No patrol car, no tire tracks in the gravel, no disturbed stones. It was as if he had never driven there. The power grid was intact. Ethan had no known enemies, no pending investigations. He lived alone. No signs of domestic trouble, no signs of mental strain. By morning, his car was gone too. Ethan's 1984 Ford Crown Victoria patrol car, with radio tracker enabled, simply vanished. The tracker's ping history was irretrievably damaged or wiped clean. The department called it a system error. Inside the station, his shift was reviewed. The patrol route printed for that night did not match previous versions. There was a new route unlogged, unapproved. The only other person with access was Lieutenant Veronica Hale, Ethan's supervisor. She transferred to another precinct 2 weeks later. When asked, she said she didn't remember making any changes. "I don't recall," she said. That answer became familiar. Ethan's sister Marlene arrived at the station early on October 15th. She saw officers whispering. Their eyes darted. No one seemed willing to explain anything. She asked, why no search team, no drones, no K-9 units? The response was vague. "We're reviewing protocol." Rumors grew that the case was quietly buried. Inside, some said Ethan had discovered irregularities in a drug arrest days earlier. A relative of a local federal agent was involved. Did he report too much? Marlene remembered Ethan mentioning. She'd been followed walking home 3 weeks before. Ethan brushed it off. Now Marlene wondered, did he know too much too late? The patrol car's tracking data was gone. Officers blamed a system glitch. Marlene didn't buy it. A few officers quietly asked the same questions. The car was never found. Not in the desert, not at storage, not submerged. 15 square miles were searched by foot. Helicopters scanned the rocky terrain by infrared. No heat signatures, no oil leaks, no tread patterns. At some point, the official search was scaled back. Budget reallocated. The case dropped, but not publicly. Nearly 1 year later, a young recruit named Darren Holt, 22 years old, resigned suddenly. He asked to meet Marlene at a roadside diner. Not logged, not recorded. He said he saw Ethan's patrol car that night. Around 10:30 p.m., near the service road by the old mine, he saw its taillights flicker through dust. He radioed in. The dispatcher said no other unit was there. Darren didn't pursue. He was ordered to stand down. Before he left, he slid Marlene a scrap of paper, Q Route 9 p.m., HL. When she asked what it meant, he whispered, "Don't ask out loud." Marlene pushed for internal files. Years of dead ends until 1992, when Gloria, a retired dispatcher, agreed to meet. She had kept a backup tape of Ethan's final log. She played it. Ethan's voice calm, measured. Quarry Road. Maybe 1066 has approach alone. Ethan referred to a suspicious vehicle. 1066 was code. HL matched the initials on the slip Darren gave her. Then she paused. The tape had been erased in the official archives. Someone didn't want others to hear what he saw, Gloria said. She stopped there. In 1994, Marlene received a late-night call from a stranger, a husky male voice. "Are you still searching for him?" "Yes," she replied. "Check North Gully along South Ridge near the old service road." Then silence. She alerted police. A team went, but no excavation. That land was later leveled for vehicle training. The terrain changed forever. The tip was dismissed as a false lead. By 1999, hikers found a decayed patrol car in a narrow canyon. It was Ethan's. Inside, no body, no weapon. Only a tattered dossier sealed in plastic bearing Unit 114 and smudged handwriting. Under ultraviolet light, 2 letters emerged, HL. It matched Darren's note. The car had been hidden in plain sight. Emily's dashcam, Ethan's personal dashboard camera, was missing. Technicians confirmed gouge marks on the dash where it had been mounted. Someone removed it cleanly. Who? That dash camera would have recorded everything. Walter Pike, a retired mechanic who serviced Ethan's car in early 1986, remembered something odd. A month before Ethan disappeared, Ethan had asked him to check the brakes and said quietly, "If anything ever happens to me, check this car first." Walter never heard back. The brakes were never inspected after the disappearance. By then, storage files from 1983-84 were reportedly destroyed in an electrical fire. But only Ethan's files and several related arrest reports disappeared. Other files remained intact. A whisper in the department, it was like someone wanted him erased. But they left the car. Marlene began reconstructing a timeline across wall-sized charts. Date stamps, patrol logs, personnel names. Something jolted. 2 officers from a neighboring county logged patrols in her sister's area that night, but their names were redacted in the available copies. When she requested unedited logs, the request was denied, citing personal safety. Marlene obtained a faded gas station receipt Ethan had signed for a coffee at 7:42 p.m. that night, backdated earlier than the final radio call at 9:35 p.m. Could he have been walking? Witnesses said he stood near a payphone but never pumped gas. Who did he call? A week later, a private investigator tracing payphone records uncovered a call from that booth to a DEA office not local. Ethan was not a DEA agent. There were no DEA investigation records in the area that month. A retired federal agent once whispered of an operation called Bridgeway. He refused to elaborate. He said Ethan wasn't arrested for wrongdoing. He disappeared because he found something. But what the evidence was buried. But it didn't stay that way. One dusty tape, a locked box, a woman who refused to give up, and a warning. If you watch this, they'll know. 3 months after the discovery of Ethan's decayed patrol car, Marlene received a brown envelope without a return address, no stamp, hand-delivered. Inside was a single VHS tape wrapped in a plastic sheet, written in red marker Bridgeway 1014 A6 QR. She knew instantly QR meant Quarry Road, the place Ethan had last radioed in. But she didn't own a VCR, and she didn't trust just anyone to help. So she drove 3 hours north to an old friend of Ethan's, Howard Lang, a former radio technician who had left the force in 1988 after a quiet disagreement with leadership. Howard lived alone in a mobile home on the edge of a canyon. He barely opened the door. But when she showed him the tape, his posture changed. He waved her in. The room was filled with wires, blinking monitors, and analog gear. He connected the tape to a dusty player. "This better not be a setup," he muttered. The tape played static first. Then footage, black and white. Date stamp, 10/14/86, 9:52 p.m. The dashboard camera inside Ethan's cruiser was active. Headlights on a dirt path. The camera sways gently. Ethan's voice. "This is Rains. I see one vehicle, parked, no movement. He steps out. The camera shakes. Another voice, distant, female, hard to hear. "You're not supposed to be here, Ethan." He shines his flashlight. The footage glitches. Then two more figures emerge. One male, one female. Civilian clothing. "Ethan, what's in the trunk?" A woman responds. "You're outside your jurisdiction, Sergeant." Ethan turns back to his car, says softly, "Dispatch. I need the footage cuts." Then silence. A frame freezes on a license plate, partially covered in dust, 8RX. The tape ends. Howard ejects it. His hands tremble. That woman's voice. "It's familiar," he said. "I think she was DEA." Marlene stares. "Why would DEA be there?" he replies. "Or someone pretending to be." Marlene made copies of the tape. She mailed one to a lawyer, kept one, and gave one to an independent journalist named Sam Dwyer, a podcaster known for digging into federal overreach and hidden corruption in border states. Sam watched it, twice, then called Marlene. "This isn't a traffic stop, it's an intercept." And Ethan stumbled into it. He asked if she had heard of Operation Bridgeway. She hadn't. Sam had. He'd been investigating it for years. Operation Bridgeway, according to Dwyer, was a black-budget federal program from the mid-'80s, allegedly designed to monitor cross-border cartel movement. But over time, it was repurposed. Instead of arrests, there were payoffs. Certain agents allegedly protected shipments for political leverage. When local cops interfered, they were reassigned or silenced. Ethan was in the wrong place, Sam said, and saw the wrong people. Marlene now believed this wasn't just a disappearance, it was a silencing. Over the next few weeks, more strange things happened. Her car alarm triggered without cause. Emails disappeared. One night her front door was open, but she had locked it. She wasn't paranoid, she was being watched. A neighbor, an old Vietnam vet, left a note on her porch. "They were on your roof." 2:13 a.m. Marlene knew she had to move fast. She returned to Ethan's apartment, which had been sealed off years ago. The property was in her name now. In the attic crawl space, she found a box labeled tax docs. Inside, not tax documents, but cassette tapes. 5 of them. Dates written in Ethan's handwriting. All from the week before he vanished. She played one. Ethan's voice. "He told me it's federal, but I don't believe him. There's too much cash, no paperwork. Something about a Route Q route, they're paying someone to shut up about it." Then silence. "Then I think Hale's in on it." Hale. Lieutenant Veronica Hale. Ethan's supervisor. Transferred shortly after he vanished. She denied changing his patrol route, but a pattern emerged. Each recording mentioned a woman with clearance, a sedan with no license plate, and a convoy at midnight. The word HL came up again and again. Marlene didn't know what it meant until she revisited Howard. Howard thought for a while. "HL," he said, "not a name, it's a location, Hollow Lane." She checked the town's old maps. There it was. A restricted strip of land 3 miles south of Quarry Road, used by a private logistics company, Dameron Freight. Dameron had no website, no phone number, just a P.O. box in El Paso. Marlene drove there. The road was sealed off, a chain-link gate, a guard tower. She parked outside and watched. Every night at 12:00 a.m., 2 unmarked trucks rolled in, black, no logos. Each time the same pattern. 11:55 in, 12:40 out, no lights, no noise. She sent footage to Dwyer. He asked her to stay back. "You've crossed into federal airspace now," he warned. "They'll move fast." He wasn't wrong. 3 days later, her laptop was bricked, her phone wiped. She received a call from an unknown number. A woman's voice, calm, threatening. "You've found enough. That's where it ends." Marlene didn't answer. She doubled her backups. Sent copies of everything to trusted contacts. She filed a request with a former senator who had shown interest in whistleblower cases. That senator never replied. Days later, he resigned for health reasons. The danger was growing. But the truth was also becoming clearer. Ethan hadn't just stumbled into something. He was preparing to expose it. He had collected names, voice notes, vehicle plates. His tapes described coordination between local law enforcement, federal agents, and freight companies masked as legal transports. He knew it was risky, but he thought maybe with evidence someone would listen. He didn't plan on vanishing. Marlene now knew there was one last step. The missing piece, a black ledger Ethan had mentioned in his final tape. It was said to list times, names, and cash transactions. She had one clue to its location. A single line from Ethan's tape. If anything happens, the truth is under booth 4. But he never said where, and booth 4 could be anywhere. Marlene stared at the worn-out cassette label again. Ethan's handwriting. If anything happens, the truth is under booth 4. It sounded like nonsense, but she knew her brother. He never used metaphors. If he said booth 4, he meant it. She made a list of everywhere they used to go when Ethan was on break or between patrols. Diners, coffee shops, gas stations, booths. She circled a name, Carla's Diner, just off I-54 3 towns west. It had been their favorite stop growing up, the kind of place with faded leather booths, 24-hour coffee, and the best chili fries in 4 counties. Marlene drove out before sunrise. The diner looked almost unchanged. The neon open sign buzzed faintly. Inside, the same red booths lined the left wall. She scanned the numbers. Booth 4 was second from the window. She slid in. Nothing obvious. No loose floor tiles. No taped notes. She stood and checked under the table. Still nothing. She was about to give up when a voice startled her. "You looking for gum or secrets?" It was the owner, Carlene, now in her 70s. She still wore her name tag sideways and had the same sharp tone Marlene remembered. "You're Ethan's sister, right?" Marlene turned slowly. "You remember me?" Hard to forget a kid who kept asking for extra ketchup and police stories. Carlene squinted. He used to sit there, booth 4, always alone, always writing in that damn notebook. Marlene's pulse spiked. "Notebook," Carlene nodded. "Stashed something under the seat one day. I thought it was trash. I reached for it, but he barked at me real quick, said, 'It's not time yet.' Then he stopped coming." Carlene bent down behind the counter, pulled out a rusted key, and handed it to Marlene. "He left this in the register. Told me if anyone ever came asking about booth 4, especially a woman with his eyes, I should give it to her." The key was labeled storage, CD. Carlene pointed to a locked closet by the back hall. "It's been there for years. I figured it was just old junk." Marlene crossed the diner, unlocked the door, and pulled on a chain light. Inside, stacked high, were crates of coffee filters, dusty menus, and a small black lockbox wedged behind an old jukebox motor. She pried it out, set it on the prep table, and opened it. Inside, a leather-bound notebook, worn and weather-stained. Taped to the inside cover was a photograph Ethan in uniform standing with 3 people. She recognized one instantly, Lauren Tutt, Veronica Hale. The others were men. One was labeled S. Kirby, the other M. Dell. Logistics. Flipping through the notebook, Marlene saw page after page of scrawled entries. Dates, vehicle descriptions, times, locations, names, all centered around one word, Bridgeway. Each entry told a part of the story. Sep 2, 1986 freight truck, no plates, entered Hollow Lane at 1:17 a.m. DEA tag on dashboard. Driver exited with case. M. Dell seen near perimeter. Sept 1986. Heard Hale discussing Bridgeway funding surplus with someone over radio. Switched channels immediately. OCT 5 1986 confirmed 200K in movement. Routed through Dameron Freight. Kirby and Hale listed as signatories on escort log. Then a name appeared in large, angry handwriting, Senior Thomas Royce, complicit. Marlene blinked. Royce had recently resigned. No explanation, no press conference, just gone. There was more. The final page of the notebook was a warning. They clean records every 90 days. Audio logs routes, but not written accounts, not mine. If I disappear, it wasn't random. It was Bridgeway. Marlene copied the entire notebook, scanned each page. She sent the files to Dwyer. Within hours, he replied, "Marlene, this is bigger than we thought. These names are on sealed government audits." Royce chaired the Border Security Fund, and S. Kirby. He's still active, working under a new name, Shane Kincaid. Homeland. That changed everything. She wasn't chasing ghosts anymore. She was challenging people still in power, but there was more to come. Dwyer had tracked down a man named Paul Miranda, a retired logistics coordinator, who once worked for Dameron Freight. He now lived off-grid in a desert trailer, claiming he had dirt on Bridgeway ghosts. Marlene and Dwyer met him at dawn in a roadside motel near Deeming, New Mexico. Miranda looked worn, haunted. His hands shook as he handed them a folder. Inside were forged route schedules, cash delivery logs, and photocopies of IDs, many with the same signature V. Hale. "Your brother came to see me," Miranda said quietly. "He had questions no local should have asked. I warned him. Warned him about what Marlene asked. Bridgeway was never about stopping cartels. It was about managing them. Let a few shipments through quietly. Let the public think we were making progress. But it was a game. Anyone who interrupted the game, he trailed off." "You think they killed him?" Dwyer asked. Miranda nodded slowly, or worse, buried, forgotten. Before they could press further, Miranda stood. "I've said too much. They watch everything. I'll leave tonight." He was gone before sunset. Marlene now had the notebook, the voice tapes, and a witness. But she needed something irrefutable. Something no one could dismiss or claim was fabricated. And that's when Dwyer made a bold offer. "I know someone inside. She's still active, quiet. But she's seen the Bridgeway reports. If we can convince her to talk, it might blow this open." Her name was Elena Cruz, mid-level Homeland analyst stationed in El Paso. Marlene and Dwyer waited in a crowded cafe as Cruz entered quietly, wearing sunglasses and a blue windbreaker. She sat without greeting them. "You have 2 minutes," she whispered. Dwyer slid the notebook across the table. She flipped through it. Silence. Then she said, "Half of this is accurate. The other half was never supposed to be written down." "Was Ethan onto something?" Marlene asked. Cruz paused. He was the only one who asked why a civilian freight company had more clearance than the sheriff's office. "Why haven't you spoken out?" "Because people who speak out disappear, Ms. Raines. And not always physically. Sometimes they're erased on paper. Their credentials vanish. Their families get audited. Their kids lose college aid. Death isn't the worst outcome." She slipped them a business card. On the back was written Cortez Base, Sept 9, midnight, look east. Then she stood and left. Marlene looked at Dwyer. "What's at Cortez Base?" He answered slowly, "If what I think is there is actually there, it's proof. Video files, logbooks, surveillance archives from 86 to 91. A chill ran down her spine. They were one step away from the truth, but the closer they got, the louder the silence grew, and someone was already watching them. They were warned not to go, but some truths don't stay buried, especially when someone's still guarding the grave. The desert was quiet, too quiet. At 11:58 p.m., Marlene and Dwyer parked a quarter-mile from Cortez Base, an abandoned satellite station once run jointly by the DEA and Border Security. It hadn't been used since the mid-90s, according to government records, but Elena Cruz's cryptic message, Cortez Base, Sept 9, midnight, look east, kept echoing in Marlene's head. They slipped past a bent chain-link fence. Dwyer checked his watch. 12:01. Then it happened. A faint hum, low, mechanical, like a generator kicking in from underground. From the eastern ridge, a soft orange light pulsed against the darkness. It wasn't natural, it wasn't accidental. Someone was here. They crept toward the glow boots, sinking into loose sand. As they climbed a low dune, the structure came into view. A bunker, half submerged. Reinforced steel, unmarked. Marlene whispered, "Not on any map." Dwyer nodded grimly. "Not supposed to exist." A camera swiveled silently above the door, then a click. The door slid open. Inside was a narrow stairwell, lit by dim red bulbs. No alarms, no voices, just silence. At the bottom, a corridor with numbered rooms, each with a keypad and an old badge scanner. Room 9, the only one with light under the door. Marlene held her breath and opened it. Inside was a large server hub, blinking terminals, reels of tape, an old-style AV projector, and a file cabinet marked 1986-91 OPS, classified. On the center table, a manila folder labeled Bridgeway Audio 94D, Ethan Rains. She reached for it. Suddenly, a voice behind them, "Don't move." Two armed agents in tactical gear stood in the doorway. One was young, alert eyes scanning everything. The other was older, with hard eyes and a scar down his cheek. Shane Kincaid, formerly S. Kirby, Ethan's nemesis. "You should have stayed out of this, Ms. Rains," he said. "This doesn't concern you anymore." Dwyer stepped in front of her. "The files concern everyone." "You really think blowing this open changes anything?" Kincaid sneered. "This country doesn't want the truth. It wants stability." Marlene clenched her fists. "You had my brother killed." Kincaid didn't flinch. "He broke the rules. The rules are what keep the system intact." Before she could reply, a second alarm began to sound, one Kincaid didn't expect. A high-pitched pulse, fast and urgent. A failsafe. "You triggered an extraction protocol," the younger agent muttered. Lights began to shut off. Backup generators kicked in. In the chaos, Marlene grabbed the folder. Dwyer yanked out a hard drive from one of the terminals, and both of them dashed out the side door as emergency sirens echoed through the bunker. Behind them, Kincaid shouted orders. But they were gone, vanishing into the night file in hand, truth in reach. They didn't stop until they were 40 miles out, parked at a desolate truck stop near Silver City. In a rented motel room, they opened the folder. What they found sent chills down Marlene's spine. Transcripts of intercepted conversations between Hale Kincaid and other agents discussing controlled traffic routes and budget diversion for field intelligence. Photographs of undocumented cash, drops, weapons crates, marked medical equipment and transport manifests, altered after approval. And worst of all, a signed order dated October 7, 1986, authorizing the detainment and psychological reprocessing of internal security threat. Rains Ethan, asset compromised. In the margin, ensure no public record remains. ER termination classified as suicide. Marlene stared at the page. They hadn't just killed her brother. They tried to erase him. Dwyer was silent for a long time. Then he said, "You don't survive this by going louder. You survive by going smarter." They needed a plan, and they needed allies. 2 days later, Marlene met again with Elena Cruz, this time in a church basement in El Paso. Cruz had heard about the breach at Cortez Bus. "I warned you," she said, her face pale. "They'll come for anyone who touches this." "We're past that," Marlene said. "We have documents, we have data, we even have the termination order." Cruz was silent. Then she handed Marlene a flash drive. This was scheduled for deletion next week. Internal audit reports, camera logs, comms history from Cortez. Everything matches your brother's notes. Marlene took it, her voice steady. "What happens if we publish this?" Cruz looked her in the eye. "You start a fire they can't contain." That night, Dwyer made a call to an old friend, Rachel Lennox, an investigative journalist turned podcaster, with a following of nearly 2 million listeners. By dawn, they were in a warehouse studio. Rachel pressed record, and Marlene told everything. Her voice was calm, controlled. She didn't embellish. She didn't dramatize. She told the story of a brother who believed in rules, who found out those rules were being rewritten behind closed doors, and who paid the price for asking why. She ended with a warning: if they could erase him, they could erase any of us. But the truth never dies. Not if we choose to remember. Not if we refuse to look away. Rachel nodded. We'll air it tomorrow, full segment, audio, documents, timelines, no edits. Then she turned to Dwyer. You ready for the blowback? He smiled grimly. They can come for me. I'm not afraid anymore. Marlene looked down at her brother's notebook one last time. His handwriting, his warnings, his courage. She whispered, You're not forgotten. But even as the story began spreading online, drawing attention from former agents, whistleblowers, and media networks, Kincaid wasn't done. Back at Cortez, he watched the upload from a secure feed. Then he picked up a satellite phone. They have the files, he said flatly. We need to initiate Black Echo. The person on the other end paused, then replied, Understood, no more warnings. As the sun set over the desert, a quiet countdown began. And the war for the truth entered its final phase. The story was out. The world was watching. But when truth becomes dangerous, silence becomes a weapon. The morning after the podcast aired, the world felt different. Justice for Ethan trended across platforms. Major news networks replayed clips of Marlene's interview. Anonymous sources came forward, confirming decades of quiet corruption within the very institutions tasked with securing the nation. But for Marlene and Dwyer, victory didn't feel safe. They were hiding in a safe house east of Las Cruces, New Mexico under fake names. Phones off, no digital trace. That's when the first sign came. A drone, silent low, circling above the motel at 3:17 a.m. Dwyer killed the lights. Marlene checked the window, unmarked, military grade, recon only, for now. By morning, their burner phone buzzed. One message. Black Echo initiated, location compromised, run. It wasn't from Cruz, wasn't from Rachel Lennox. The sender ID was masked only initials AR. Before they could process it, tires screeched outside. 2 black SUVs. Government plates, no sirens. They were already there. Dwyer kicked open the back exit. They bolted through a side alley down a drainage ditch and into a dry irrigation canal. He led them through a maintenance tunnel and up into a scrapyard. No helicopters, no shots. Yet. They're testing us, he panted, seeing if we'll run or fight. Marlene glanced at him. We'll do both. 2 hours later, they were in a diner in Deming, cloaked in hoodies, trying to stay invisible. That's when a stranger slid into the booth beside them. He was in his 60s olive jacket, faded army cap. His voice low names Arthur Raines, Ethan's handler. Marlene froze. You're lying. I'm not, he said. I was the one who trained him, who warned him, and I am the one who failed him. He pulled out a flash drive. Everything you've uncovered so far, it's only the outer ring. This is the core. On the drive, footage of interrogation rooms inside Cortez Bass. Recordings of Hale signing covert approvals for operations that were never publicly reported. An unredacted audio confession from a dying agent in 1993, admitting to Ethan's murder and naming Kincaid and Hale as co-conspirators. Arthur's hand trembled. I've been waiting for someone to finish what Ethan started. Marlene swallowed hard. Why now? Because they've activated their last protocol. Black Echo isn't just a kill order, it's a reset. Wipe everything. You, me, even Cruz. Everything Ethan stood for. Dwyer looked up. Then we publish this. Fast. Arthur shook his head. No, you go live. What? Not a podcast, not a leak. A broadcast, unfiltered, unstoppable, before they can pull the plug. He handed over an address. There's an old public signal tower near Sierra Blanca, still operational. You get there, you plug in the drive, you tell the world, before they bury the truth again. Marlene nodded. They were done running. By midnight, the trio approached the tower on foot. The road was blocked, power cut, but the signal box still worked. Manual override. Dwyer set up the uplink. Marlene faced the camera. No script, just conviction. My name is Marlene Raines. My brother died because he exposed a lie, and now they want to erase his memory, but they can't, not anymore. Behind her, the broadcast signal went live. Video, audio, evidence, testimony, everything. Within 4 minutes, it was being picked up by independent news sites, whistleblower forums, and national feeds. The reach was irreversible. That's when the first gunshot rang out. A sniper. Dwyer dove for cover. Arthur returned fire. He shouted, "Keep uploading." Marlene didn't flinch. She stared into the lens and said, "You can silence one voice, but not all of us." The screen cut to black, but it was too late. The world had seen. The screen went black, but the world did not look away. The broadcast had shattered the silence. Across the nation, phones buzzed, radios crackled, and newsrooms scrambled to verify the leaked evidence. Public outcry exploded, protest debates and demands for accountability filled every street and screen. Marlene Dwyer and Arthur barely escaped the sniper's line of fire. They fled into the desert night, hearts pounding and lungs burning. But this was no longer just about survival. It was about justice, for Ethan, for everyone silenced before him. In the days that followed, the government could no longer deny the truth. High-ranking officials were arrested. Secret files were declassified. Kincaid and Hale were exposed not just as conspirators, but as architects of a system built on lies and fear. Marlene sat on a dusty bench outside a courthouse, her eyes scanning the crowd. People she had never met came forward to thank her, to share their own stories of lost family and stolen truth. The weight of the fight still pressed on her shoulders, but hope flickered brighter than ever. Arthur approached her quietly. "They wanted to bury Ethan," he said softly, but his echo, "It's louder than ever." Marlene nodded. "This isn't the end. It's just the beginning." Back in Las Cruces, Dwyer checked his phone. News alerts poured in, more whistleblowers, more leaks, more truth surfacing. The system was shaking. "We've cracked the surface," he said, "but the roots run deep." Marlene looked toward the horizon, where the desert met the sunrise. For every silence broken, she whispered, "There's a voice waiting to be heard." Ethan's legacy lived on, not as a whisper in the dark, but as a beacon lighting the way forward.